session, second discussion, and right now we're going to speak about another point of view to the same problems. We had public representatives, business representatives, clients, security guys in the previous session, and right now we'd like to speak to those guys who know those problems on the tips of their fingers. And our section is called Hacker's Truth. We have to understand why are they breaking. Those who do it themselves, not they didn't hear it on TV, but they themselves are creating this news with their own hands. So I will call these guys to the stage, I will introduce them, and then we will start our discussion. So this topic will be discussed by Timur Yanusov, Positive Technologies. Timur Yanusov. Dmitry Yevteev, Headline Security. Nikita Kislitsyn, IB Group. Amar Ganiyev, X Security. And Sergey Belov, Digital Security. So, let's talk. First question is to each one of you. Why? It takes 1-2 days of easy work to break a big network. People spend millions of dollars for security systems, and then you come once, twice, and you broke it. You have entered the closed network, got access to secrets. To your point of view, why does it happen? Okay, Timur, you're going to be the first one. What can you say about it? Yes, hello. Well, to my point of view, cybersecurity works in such a way so that they don't think too much about hacker attacks, especially from the business point of view. They think about business effectiveness, about services and everything else, and only after a while, when they come across technologies and hackers come and start breaking something, only then cybersecurity guys wake up and they say, well, we didn't defend ourselves here, we didn't protect ourselves here and here. So if you make analogy with chess, hackers, they play for the white guys, and security guys wait for the black ones. So hackers always are step ahead, and cybersecurity are step behind. They play defensive. Hello, I see the following problem. Today I will speak about examples. An example. Wise people, they exist on both sides, on the side of hackers and on the side of security guys. Well, there's a company, for example, they have properly approached the situation, they took the best practices, they made a system, from the point of view, they had a very good password protection, tokens, they've closed everything with firewalls and provided backup, antivirus system, everything. Wonderful. System functions. Then users come to this system. Evil administrators, security administrators, they closely control the work of this system. They see the logs and the wins. They react to any incident in the beginning, but no incidents are happening. Why? Some insignificant incidents might happen. Maybe some simple malware like eCar, and then, well, looks like incident. But after a certain time, users start complaining that they are not happy with this complex policy, password policy. Then we see some account on computer, suddenly account needs to install some internet bank, and it cannot work through proxy. and then we see holes coming to the security system which initially have not been determined that this possibility will happen in the system. User starts going to some internet site on the computers, we see some anomalies happening and people are reacting to that, and vendor with multiple updates coming to them, and I come to an impression it's not a system that fulfills my objectives, but I follow the desires of a system. I get behind the computer, Windows tells me I need an upgrade. Okay, I don't want to upgrade right now, I want to work. I start browser and browser tells me you have to update. I say but I want to work. And I start Office. Office tells me you have to upgrade. I come home, switch on my iPad. You need to upgrade. These constant updates, and a scale of only one person with 2-3 computers, even more than that, mobile phone as well. But in a scale of a company is a constant cycle, and they manufacture those updates. They are with holes, system drops. What security can we talk about with all these updates? And system functions, of course. And there are some interesting guys who see that the password has not been changed here. Down here they forgot to close a port, and then they use it. And then people are trying to get around this security system themselves when it's not convenient, when it's not comfortable. Well, on my personal example, well, I thought, well, it's cool. I have a network. Users will go through VPN and one-time generated passwords. Wonderful. But mail, I will hide inside of my perimeter. And if you want to use email, get connected to one-time password, disposable password, PIN code, certificate. Wonderful. But I figured out afterwards, it's not convenient. Network completely breaks. For example, I'm driving a car. I'm entering some tunnel. Connection breaks. Connection with the internet breaks. One-time password cannot be switched on, so I have to introduce it once, another time, third time. So I've realized it with the perimeter of protection encoding SMIME. Wonderful. SMIME. I see after 1 year, everybody tells me it's not convenient. Let's email come to my external mail. Okay, convinced me. Not convenient, let's do that. Question number 2, I have it immediately. Let's not encode it because I don't have, well, because it's so difficult to install this certificate. And then suddenly, from that initial concept that I was introducing from the very beginning, I have reduced following the business process requirements. I suffer from it myself because I want security to be security, but it's not convenient. Very expressive presentation. Maybe I will also use some memories and cases, but answering the main question, any attempts from the side of the business to connect security from outside for a certain amount of money, this is initially meaningless approach, because you cannot just come and buy some product to protect yourself without relation to anything and think that you are secure. Just because security is about processes, about culture, about people who use it. And part of my work is related with analysis of bot networks. So what is the problem? Polluted computers, they send to command centers of those botnets certain data. They send different data, requests, everything that you put in your browser, screenshots, workday schedules, videos recorded, some keys that can be used, some file system keys, USB stick keys, whatever. And realistically speaking, we did have 5 cases that I can remember. Commercial bank. and, for example, intruded computer, and in administrative panel of the fraudsters who steal from the financial system. What do we see there? The schedule of a workday of a person who administers the domain. And there's a lot of cultural questions. One hand, he administers the domain, he has file system keys. Another side, he spends time in contact, in the chat, and it's not a story invented. These are real screenshots that were documented. And the question is how this computer was exploited. The model, which model was used for exploiting? Maybe by accident it did happen with some exploit bug from some popular site. And here's the case: person administers domain and his device that he can authorize to his infrastructure, even small infrastructure, but it's a bank infrastructure. If it's a regional bank, it's hundreds of millions of rubles which could be lost. What business can do? They can buy subscription to some antivirus or maybe install some FRS for $1 million, maybe. But security will not improve because of that. It's not because of a lack of maturity, because mature information security companies which think about processes very often, these are big technological companies, and as a consequence they have a lot of their own codes or their own services, and physically it is very difficult to follow all of these. For example, they have 5 security guys, 10 or 3 security guys, and they cannot follow all these thousands of employees. Each one of those can start malware and start spoofing or doing fakes. And certain percentage of people will always use their own passwords, and they will always speak their passwords in the phone and launch files. The only thing that is left to us is just to react to those incidents. It's a race that attackers have the first step, because they see the perimeter, and those who defend themselves, they don't know where they will be infected. That's a brief answer. Going back to the initial question, why they are breaking. Well, the security guys are hiring wrong people. My opinion, the company says that we need a security guys and we need to introduce SDLC in the company. But honestly speaking, they need to hire offensive security officers. Because how does it happen in the practice? I didn't see any single company where you can come, start a responder, and don't catch any account. Why? Because security introduced secure processes. So what is a responder? Why do they take the domain part so quickly? The same thing happens with the offensive guys. They come there and finally it's a Hydra or anything else, and by default we have bought automatic scanners, and suddenly we start doing an offensive approach. But my idea is that if you want to build a defense, you have to take offensive guys in the team, those who worked long time in offensive. Nikita, question to you. How often can you evaluate in which percentage of big companies internally they have broken computers, infected computers with powerful botnet, according to your experience? Well, looking at those numbers that we see working with big companies, discovering their data, and the data that we discover from botnets, for example, if you take 1 year period of time, I think that more than 1/3 of big companies are subject to such infections. Honestly speaking, it's difficult to evaluate this threat working with the botnet information, because external addresses that we find, that ABC Bank, for example. Yes, it's understandable. This situation can be warehouse employee or maybe the administrator of the network. Of course, there could be different levels. So it's impossible to find a direct link to a direct employee, but significantly, yes, about one third. And in the recent year of our work, even biggest clients, big banks also, with DMZ perimeters, they are not thinking about it so thoroughly. For example, agreement.exe, if a person writes a good text at the given moment of time, it's a realistic situation when people can open those files and get in their computers infected by giving the access to their computers without any difficult attacks, any complex attacks. Well, it's an interesting topic, and it's a conference when we have people from both sides, those like Sergey Afanasyev and paper security guys. So these are people who understand nothing about possibility of them being really broken in. So according to your experience, do people understand that you may come and break them within 2 days and they have to change something? Is it unexpected news to them, or maybe it's something expected from their side? So what can you say about that? First of all, I've told you that I don't think that people who build security, they don't understand. They do. They perfectly understand everything. And if you will look at their history, first they play with 27001, penetrated security. Then they started playing with antiviruses, with firewalls. They're looking at the reaction. They do understand what it's all about, what is this security is all about. But another thing is that they don't expect that this can be so complex, and situation may be such that from outside a person could easily get control over all their IT assets in the company, including networking equipment, operating systems, databases, everything, absolutely everything. People don't expect that. But from your point of view, it's a question to each one of you. Let's imagine that it can be broken. People should understand better how to defend themselves. But it's a question to each one of you, Sergey, Dima, Timur. For example, Sberbank management calls you and says, well, we have such a situation, we're being broken and hacked. Well, take as much money as you want, do whatever you want, and take money for yourself, but build me such a system so that I would never be hacked. But if I will be hacked, I will cut your foot away. What would you respond to this situation? I wouldn't go for that. Nobody would go for that. Nobody. Timur would. No. Don't look at me. If you are in a lose-lose situation, you have to understand that you will lose your foot. That's it. But you are often being condemned by people responsible for security, that to break is much easier than to defend. Because to defend, you have to understand everything. But to break, you just need to find one or two bugs. Well, I disagree with this position. Speaking about pen testing on positive technologies or maybe some other platforms, I don't want to make any advertisement. In Headlight, for example, I did have the following approach. That pen tester's objective, pen tester, not attacker, but pen tester, his objective is to maximally cover the whole system as wide as possible, and don't try to find some application to break it. You have broken Well, there are web applications in the network, and networking equipment that can be connected to the external, and they might have some external platforms connected to outside world, and they can receive data from them, and they can use this data for penetrating into internal network. But as an example, admin password, site admin password can be a single password as for the user in this network. Can be the same password. Well, it can happen. But let's see. The question is following one. Which would be your first 3 steps in order to complicate the life of intruder? Top 3 actions to complicate life of intruders. All actions will be related with access control. Most of them will be related to access control management. If business, marketing, IT, if they all are ready to go back to rock age and to transfer information on disks, on papers, isolate segments of internet, I'm just hyperbolizing, but nevertheless, the level of security, of course, will noticeably be improved if we are not going to have what Dima was speaking about in course of first 2 months, and then suddenly they will get connected to the 3G router and backdoor connection. Then, of course, the security will improve, convenience will drop, and after a certain period of time, people will come and they will start complaining, and we'll go back to Dima's case. Well, people are used to reading corporate mail on their iPad, but you cannot connect a certificate, an external USB stick to this iPad. Would it improve the situation? Yes, it would. But I would say that by answering question, I really like the experience of Kiwi, and they're reinforcing it right now. I do think that this is really a successful model. First of all, they have defensive and offensive security people in their team. The first step they've done, they've made their own pen tests and they've closed whatever they could. The second step was defensive, monitoring, and they have it everywhere. And the third step was a risky one, very risky step. They used red team for pen testers. It wasn't just like you have a scope and break from 10 to 6 p.m. If something will drop. No, it was a full freedom. On weekends, work days, there was not a scope. The main objective was everything. Try to break everything. And my opinion was it was a right approach. They did it, and as a result, as they admit, they did have a lot of moments they didn't see, and they've admitted it. It's a normal situation. It doesn't speak about their incompetency, because you cannot cover everything. But they have discovered so many things they didn't expect, and this has really improved their informational security within those objectives they had. Yes, their main objective was to improve the informational security. Speaking about the red team, because they do have some objectives to get access to confidentiality, to the accounts, but to profiles, but it's a limited scope. Well, the scope was not limited in that case. I disagree. The scope is limited by the law of Russian Federation. Yes, that's true. That's true. And you, in the course of the pen test, you cannot read emails, right? Right. You are limited. Corporate mail, well, honestly speaking, I would argue with that. This is very, very arguable, thin ice, but all the critical actions, very critical actions, are agreed with the security. The formalities in the former century. Okay, let's speak about this. To scan the provider who didn't give a permission for scanning, you cannot do that. Okay, guys, these legal questions we're not going to discuss right now. Let's speak about technical things. Well, then I will give another example to you. To break home computer of corporate user, you cannot do that. In red team, you can. No, you cannot, because you violate the law on private security, private information. But do we speak about technical things or the law? Well, attackers, they don't follow any laws. True, it's true. Dima Yevteev, basically speaking, he was one of the main organizers of the first PhD and the second one as well, and following ones. And he's the guy who breathed the hackers' truth into this conference. And Timur, he's on a mobile phone, but right now all the contests are prepared by him. Dima was doing that. So let's look at that. Dima, it's to you. When we've been making statistics from first years and vulnerabilities, pen test results, it was awful one. You say, you cannot put flash stick into the iPad. It's a top level problem. More than 80% of problems are totally different. Non-patched vulnerabilities of the year 2005. Why are we speaking about such out of the outer space problems? Simple, clear things and real things. So why do you think this is happening? Well, I will explain it on an example. Long time ago, and out of the experience of when we've been launching online scanner, we've been scanning free of charge, by the way. It was kind of an action marketing program from Positive Technologies. Anybody could scan themselves. And to my email, I've received an interesting letter from one person, and he tells me, I had a free BSD, one port, everything is firewalled, so okay, scan me, please. Try to break me, try to find a vulnerability. So, this is when a person has a single system and he nurtures it. But right now everything has changed significantly. And a person doesn't have one computer, he has many computers. Speaking about big companies, they have dozens, hundreds, thousands of computers. Computer has entry point, it has account, profile, password. Every person has their own profiles, and VPN for email, for computer. Then social network 1, social network 2, social network 3, Twitter. Also social network. What a person can do. One group of people use one password everywhere. It's very convenient. It's a transparent authorization through the internet. Other people, they start writing them on papers. But when you have more than 3 passwords, stickers, you don't have enough stickers. People take notepads. Some other people understand, why should I use notepad? Because I have to copy it from the notepad, but I will store password on a desktop in a text file. Non-protected text file. Very useful. Transparent copy paste, and that's it. But other people, they just invent a password from 1 to 8 and they think it makes them happy. And once again, people do face constant problems, because if a person invents a very complex password, he forgets it. He has to change it, then he has to invent new password and remember it. You know, passwords it's an evil of our days, because when you have so many systems with passwords, it's impossible to remember this number of passwords. And speaking about corporate politics, you have to change them constantly. And nobody understands why. It's an arguable question, but nevertheless, relatively arguable. But a person, it's an example. A person, okay, let's say, once every 3 months, he should invent, well, a person invents a password he could remember. He enters it and system tells him, no, says the system, you don't satisfy to the complexity requirements of the password. And when I was introducing 30 symbols password, 300? No, 30 symbols. It's not satisfying to the requirements. And the person already has this password in his head and he remembers this password. Well, now he has to invent something once again. Doesn't work. Next day, he will forget this new password because he was remembering the previous one. And this is a problem. You know how it looks in malware logs, this situation? It looks like that. Person tries to authorize himself in a certain system, puts one password, doesn't work. He ends 1. 6 divides by 7, by 8, by 1. Then new password database. Then suddenly he enters. And in the result of this cycle of legitimate attempts of entering his own system, that Trojans watch, he discloses the password system and his password database that he's changing constantly to satisfy. Well, I would like to add to this password situation. Security department should be in friendly relations with users, especially to the passwords, in order to avoid this problem. They should be told about different schemes on how to have different passwords and without forgetting. For example, mail password abstractly could be mail, and there should be database 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the final number it's going to be the month. And this could be different passwords and different because each user will have his own scheme of password generation. And everything's going to be wonderful. It's a bad example, because if intruder knows the history of your passwords and sees that a person puts date when he changed his password last time, he can use that as well. And through the malware and password policy had a password like A, big A, small a, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and due to psychology, a big number of people were finding this password from one people and following all other ones. They just seen the same password minimally applied to the policies. I use letters in the end. A, B, you know that now. You see? We've lifted a topic of imperfection of systems that follow passwords. And everybody will agree with me. How do we work? We can find only one identifier, take the database of identifiers, and then look at the whole scope of identifiers, and the account will not be blocked because every time one attempt. But at the same time, you will be able to assemble the legitimate profiles of legitimate users. It's a methodology of doing a pen test. Another thing that I would like to emphasize right now about passwords. Okay, passwords are evil. Let's have one password, and I will use the same password for Google, Facebook, and they try to impress it on me. Well, maybe it's good. An example. Recently, I've been making a site on a free hosting provider, and I've seen that my sister, she's a simple user with a passwords are crossed out. She was changing them many times. She doesn't remember which password is working. I look at that place. Well, it's wonderful. You can authorize yourself by Gmail, through Facebook. I say, do you have Facebook? Wonderful. We have got authorized. Wonderful. I think, okay, finally, this problem has been solved for her. But then there's another problem. She tells me, can you fix something on my internet? I say, yes, I can. But in order to get the access, I need your Facebook password. But, well, she doesn't want to tell me everything about what she does with, and there is a certain privacy question related. So on one side, there are certain solutions that we can use in this case, but on the other side, there are certain limitations. And you can give a certain, if the original account allows you to give the rights not only for yourself but for other applications, well, it's a partial solution. ACL is a big one. You can, to enter the account, you have to enter this account. It's the only problem. Ideally, you have to extend it by the fact that you're saying that, well, give me access to this and to that resource, possibly. But these are the sites which allow you to get registered to the social network, and then the password is being generated and sent to your email. So that's how the problem is solved. So the password is being generated for you. You enter to the social network, and then to my email they send me automatically generated password. That's how it works. And then you can continue using it. Well, you can enter through the social network or through your own password. But then there's another thing. Well, user have received the password, he is happy, presses it, and then this letter will stay in this mailbox. Well, storing passwords, but there should be a certain expiry date. There should be expiry, and the system will re-update this password. Well, it's a good topic. Well, I would like to speak about authorization. It's an interesting topic, big topic, and I would like to go to the topic, not our topic, but target attacks and things like that. For example, by answering a question, what can be done for a lot of money and which are the best experiences? Well, in every topic there are best practices, like blue team, red team, wonderful. It works for every company, and in an abstract bank, head of the company would also offer this vector to develop. But whether it's enough to all of us. Is it enough to us? No, it's not enough. So, separate topic, target attacks, fraudulent software, and then it enters internal network. What can be done here? We can remember Facebook as a company, big company, that they are good in security, and they have a publicly written best practices about this particular topic. What do they do in this direction? Retrospectively, they accumulate a lot of logs and connections which are being generated by their infrastructure, passive DNS, all the connections, all HTTP requests. Then they record traffic, all the traffic. They have special office and all the computers. They record all the traffic, so that in the framework of a certain time period, if they need, they can add and reproduce some attack. And all of this is, of course, indexed, and they spend a lot of money for the hardware to store it, to index it, and to search through it. And basically, it gives you a wonderful opportunity. If you buy some threat intelligence things, you can check yourself, you can check your own infrastructure without introducing anything new. For example, a new fraudulent group steals from Russian banks, for example. There's a certain company, they give us a feed with command centers, command and conquer centers of those criminal groups. So let's check my own bank. Did we have any requests to those IPs and address? If I have good feeds, well, it gives good results. So you as admin, you can check yourself retrospectively, and you will understand whether you did have those problems or not. For example, this ABC security company gave me certain IP, and there was a host that was knocking there. So many bytes have been leaking. So let's look at this host. It's an effective way which works pretty well. I had a good example, by the way. I checked my IP addresses, and there was a story when we did a pen test, and we said to people, can you give us your scope of external IPs? They started thinking, then they gave it to us, and they made a mistake. They didn't give us their own IPs. So very often people don't even understand which are the external IPs they have. APT, target attacks, and other things, and mass of other examples. Even when Google Telecom was broken just because they made a new service, they made a website, and then they've canceled it, and they forgot about this site. It was hanging in technological network. It was broken into. They got into their billing, and they did have a big problem. But very often, to break, you don't need to be very smart, because there's a lot of systems in every company. And the second topic, a little bit outside of our main topic, let's speak about community. Right now, there was a section before you where different people were speaking. And for example, representatives of Stack, he said, what do we have to do so that our Russian community would look for vulnerabilities in Russian sites and would send them to FStack, and wouldn't look vulnerabilities in Cisco and wouldn't send them to Russian railroads. The one who pays, he receives the replies. Well, a lot of vulnerabilities are sent free of charge. Yes, yes, a lot of them, a lot of them. Let's say, take backtrack, and you will see Oracle vulnerabilities, Cisco vulnerabilities, other vulnerabilities. And our people do it free of charge, without, not for money. Well, those people are motivated for other things. They're motivated for their own reputation, that they collect some problems. They know that this is a popular resource and he can refer to that he debugged it. Well, I was the guy who debugged the Cisco. Yeah, that's true. If you will break Ministry of Internal Affairs, there also will be a glory, but wrong type of glory. It's not for money, it's in the framework of some work, pen testing works, like with SAP, for example. It's not like the person spent his free time free of charge to find those vulnerabilities on free of charge basis. Well, in my opinion, people are afraid. People are afraid to search in Russian products. Why? Well, they are afraid because the back reaction may be a wrong one. They had good intentions and suddenly the person will go to prison. When I was beginning my career more than 5 years ago, and I started doing something like that due to lack of experience and without the permission of some company, I did it, and the reaction was not adequate. So there should be bug bounty. If you will do it in America, nobody will say good words to you. Well, first of all, if they want to vulnerabilities to be found, people shouldn't be afraid. But if you want people not be afraid, we always have it in our site. We have security mail. It's called security.fstack.ru, and you can report security bags to this email. Follow this and these rules as a bouncer. If you find a vulnerability, the maximum that you can do, for example, you have RCE and some ID. Well, FStack can give you the address, but FStack is not a developer of these products, but they should motivate people. They should motivate people. If they want to find those vulnerabilities, then they should motivate people because they receive big money for that and they want people free of charge to make them protected. How? Why? And even if somebody finds vulnerability for free, like breaking Oracle or Cisco, people shouldn't be afraid of doing that, especially if they do it with good intention. Companies should understand why people are afraid of them due to their policies. One thing when you find RCE in Windows and improve your rating. Another thing if you find RCE in some unknown product and do it free of charge. Why? What's the meaning? To improve your own skill. Because you have to practice on something. You have to begin with something. It's not like everybody will go and super guru hackers will immediately go and, well, research is being paid for. And those who wants to start, they could apply their skills. I agree. So your recommendations, for example, some Russian manufacturer wants to make a bounty program. What should he emphasize? Pay money, give certain thanks, the Hall of Fame, or something else. What is more important? At least something should be available. They do nothing. Yes, something should be done by them if they want to achieve a result. Okay, I'd like to remind you that in principle, the format of our conference provides questions from the audience. So there are 2 microphones. You shouldn't wait. So here's a microphone. Ask your questions. No questions. I would like to add a couple of words about bounty. We have to honestly look at all mistakes. For example, Google has a page where they describe vulnerabilities found by bug hunters. It's a wonderful thing. How it was found, how it was broken, and how did they pay to those who found it. Nikita properly said one thing, and I completely agree with him that system that he was speaking about really allows to protect your site. But what's interesting about it, Facebook is ready to spend money for it, and they spend money for it. But do we have a lot of Russian companies who really are ready to spend money for it, resources for it? And you should also think about salaries of people, because if the system will just collect information and here's a dead box laying down there, somebody should watch this dead box, and everything's related to money. It's all about the money. The question? Speak in the microphone. Speak in the microphone, please. Please. Hello. I'm Yekaterina, and I have a question about passwords. What do you think about the fact that iPods, iPhones offer to generate password more than 16 symbols each, and the fact that they all are auto-filling on the iPads for one profile or account? Well, we've been speaking about it, by the way. I even remember the solution from Aladdin, who's been offering to use tokens to generate passwords and being security administrator. I even bought for it, because a big password that is known by my token, but even I don't know it. But as I learned from life, it's very difficult to use it. And I'm against iPad passwords, especially a big number of those passwords. I'm speaking about myself. I've bought new iPad, and it asks me to fill additional 2 numbers. And I will admit to that nothing smarter than do 1 in the end I have not invented. Why? Because I cannot remember so many passwords. Believe me, I cannot. I think the password topic is the most important topic for all of you. You see, guys, another topic I would like to discuss. You all work in the industry many years, and you have certain practical history. You have a question? Okay, hello. It's about passwords. Big number of people cannot remember big number of passwords. That's true, especially if they don't know about computers. But are there any proposals for such people so that they could use different passwords to improve the security, but not forgetting them, so that there would be a certain storage with maximum protection? There's a lot of programs for safe password storages with commercial, like 1Password, and for different platforms they are well integrated, and they store the passwords well. This is one point of failure. It's more for system administrator. Well, I can tell you, if a person reads a lot of books, some phrases from books which you like. For common people who know nothing about it, keep us. Same companies, they should understand the passwords, but to make it so that it would be difficult to access for the intruder. Well, you have to talk to people. And speaking about companies, it's necessary to explain to them. We have to constantly inform them that you can do it this way or that way. My way, for example, I take certain phrase from a book, and somehow, well, it's going to be a long password, but there's a small peculiarity. It's not always convenient for typing. For example, on the iPad, it's going to be a totally different than from the keyboard. Another question, but don't ask questions about passwords, please, please, please. As I remember, Sergey was speaking about offensive in the team. Will it be a red hat or black hat? Criminals. Well, you've been speaking about violating the law during pen test break-in, and ideally speaking, one could break something. Offensive security doesn't mean that you're a black hat or you violate the law. It doesn't always equal. Offensive security is that you are offensive. That's the only thing. Okay, thanks. The question was that if you change, if you look for a person who's not in a legal field, and you can be useful to your company by understanding that that is the problem. You hire a person who will break it and will start blackmailing you. Well, I'm saying nobody speaks about skill. We speak about trust. I can tell you a small story. Long time ago, I found on the computer of a girl in the HR department, she she thought that her boyfriend was doing something wrong. Let's say that. She was suspicious and she wanted to get access to his mail.ru mailbox. So, what she does in this case? What did she do? She was searching how to break mail in the Google. Download this program, install it, and we have caught her when she has installed this program, and we have followed what was she doing. And she was a very clever girl. She has found who breaks for money, and she tells him, when you will break my boyfriend's mailbox, I will pay you money, but can you give me a screenshot of that inbox, and only then I will give you money. And we thought, oh wow, what a smart girl. This is about black. What about question? Well, hello colleagues. I'm listening to all of you right now. It sounds wonderful. I'm the defensive security, and in my world, the world of pink ponies and beautiful world, I build temples. I come to the clients and they say it's wonderful, but why it costs you so much? Why it costs us so much? So I believe when offensive security, if we really build it seriously, it also costs a lot of money. But for the big business corporations who can do it, who can allow it, we come to the mid-sized business. They do have some money, but they don't have money for best practices. How can we combine all this together? And such companies, most of them, and they are broken because they don't care about security. They are interested in business process. So what the question is all about? The question is, how do you see the combination of real life and offensive security? What people should do, especially those people who don't have money for that. You say people don't understand how to defend themselves because they don't have offensive security. But they say they don't have money for offensive. Offensive security doesn't cost a lot of money. And the team will be much cheaper than introducing, you can do pen test every day, every month. It's going to be much cheaper than installing one hardware, which is going to cost you millions. Well, I disagree with my colleagues from this point of view, because it's like this offensive thief, it's like a treat from all the problems. You can do pen tests every day instead of installing some piece of hardware that will defend you from something. Because, well, what is a pen test? Something doesn't work properly. The load is on the administrator's shoulders. So when you do pen test every day, my apologies, sorry, but it's not a good approach. My opinion, honestly speaking, we have a lot of systems surrounding us. Business has to work. And what do we see? We see clouds. Wonderful. If previously, to work with a word, we needed computer in a perimeter. Right now, from iPad in a cloud, document exchange, very convenient, and then perhaps some red team, especially is everything moves to the clouds. So this cloud could provide you some subscription like an hoster's principle. I have a site, I host it, or you have a publication firewall, I install it, I'm protected. So maybe the same approach should be utilized. I'm in the cloud, and then the cloud approach should be used to defend me. So we should put this accountability to somebody else, security as a service, and then it's not going to be that expensive. Maybe there's another idea. If we're speaking about money, there was always a trend for open source, and many solutions that previously were sold for money, they were outsourced, and GCMs, and we're speaking about defensive, they exist, they do work, and I know the company that was able to do that. Well, it was difficult, it didn't work in some places, but yes, we don't say that our company is ready to spend big amounts of money for that, but we still are looking in this direction, and from the point of view of offensive approach, it doesn't involve big budgets, and from the point of view of very cool penetration in the most difficult companies, the security means are just increasing the scope and probability of penetration, because they don't care that some piece of hardware will defend from something, they will find something else and break it. So maybe defense from some mass attacks, but it doesn't cover everything. I agree. Did you answer your question? Well, I just want to understand. You say that if we will hire our own specialists, where does a business have money to hire their own team? But can we outsource red team in our Russian realities when people don't trust clouds with their data? How can you check outsourcing and pen test it? Why can't we start a project and make a Russian cloud, for example? The world is built in such a way so that we have to trust each other. We do have to trust each other. It's Dima Evteev who's saying that. Dima, you're absolutely right in saying that. I completely agree with you that we cannot go without trust. And we together, when we've been working together, we've done a lot of pen tests. We've done a lot of work together where we have received access to clients' data. Clients have trusted us. They understand our situation, they understand our reputation, and they can really entrust their data to us. It's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem, well, on this market there's a big number of companies, new companies. There are old companies. And reputation on this market is the only thing you have. If you do something wrong, well, you break your reputation, you're dead. So it's not a problem about the trust. I think it's more likely the mindset problem of those who want to defend themselves. If you want to really defend yourself, he will find the money for that. So I agree with Omar. These are not such a big money. Sometimes people spend more money for some other awful things. Vasily, I would like to go back to Russian security means from the vendor's position. How much it costs to search for vulnerability? What is the minimum price? How much will we agree? Yes, I understand the firewalls, but I'm from the cloud company. If it's going to be a virtualization platform on an OpenStack basis, so to search vulnerability in this one, the prices of each one of you, the minimum prices, can you give it to me right now? You can open hackerone.com and see the prices. No, your prices. Your prices. Everything will depend. Do I have time? And very often don't search because of money, but just because they have time. I don't participate in bug bounties because I don't like it. Just an opinion. How much would it cost? Minimum. Well, security means which are sold for many millions of rubles. Big vulnerabilities cost hundreds of thousands of rubles. Yes, I understand. If it's a binary one, binary vulnerabilities, their price is much higher. It makes the price list even higher, and to exploit it properly, it's much more expensive. So do you need just POC? I don't know, just re-record that controlled value, or you need full-scale exploits. If you do it for yourself, POC will be enough for you, and your approach should be the same. We accept them, LP, wonderful. LP, if you accept it, people will be happy because most often LPs are not accepted anywhere else. I'm speaking about those companies which buy vulnerabilities from everybody else. So the question is about ratios. If you will build a proper relations to the program, everything is going to be wonderful and reputable. 100,000 isn't enough as a minimum one. With the price of a product, 1 million. Well, it depends on how complex is your problem. So if you want to find this vulnerability, you should be an expert who knows this product and receives much more and sells exploits legally for hundreds of thousands of dollars. He will not go for some stupid thing for 100,000 rubles. Well, he will post it free of charge. Well, it's not a problem that we don't search for this. People are searching and then put it in public, especially in Twitter. In a month or two, I've seen a lot of stories like that in Twitter. Yeah, we read them. They search for them because they are available. It's a good question. Good question. What should be done? And I will add to this question, what should be done? We are Russian vendor. How should I talk to you just to search for something? How do you see this? What the vendor should do? Download at the site. Will you install our virtualization platform? Why not? Or the cloud? No, of course. If everything will be deployed in my... Yeah, you want to put it in your office and then hack it so that nobody would log anything. Of course, of course. Thank you. Let's go to the next topic. You all are in the industry, and from the practitioner's point of view, you do pen testing, you analyze incidents, you provide consulting to the clients. What trends do you see in recent 5+ years? What has changed on the market from the methods of intrusion, from incident point of view? If previously one could put a user in a defensive perimeter and control him, right now our users are outside of this perimeter. And very often they exchange corporate mail information through some third-party public resources like Gmail, through the social networks. Before one could fight against it. For example, if you don't provide Wi-Fi, but right now everybody has his own mobile phone, iPad. So information circulates freely. Even photo cameras. 7 years ago, photo camera was a simple photo camera. Right now everybody has a photo camera in their mobile phones, and those methods of protection of information which were applied 7 years ago, they are not effective today in current realities. What means of protection are not effective today? For example, we had a protected computer which does the encoding. Microsoft has a solution, I forget the name of it, where the document is noted and then it's being encoded, re-encoded. You can open it, but you cannot copy anything. But you can make a photo of this document. When they've started doing that in year 2003, Microsoft, I was at the beginning, and in Microsoft they've been showing a funny video when there's a monitor is brought to the scanner, and it's a method of receiving information. Security, people think that firewall protects you, but internal network can be connected. So firewall doesn't work every time. Well, these technologies are developing. They are developing, and the approach of the intruder, Nikita, can tell you about how the Carbonite group works. It's very important. About 4 years ago, one A security guy have told me, he told me, well, you are able to get connected to the database, but you don't know what kind of data it contains. How do you realize the problems for us? I say, well, I will search for interface that works with this database. And right now I see from Kaspersky and from IB Group on how the most successful APT groups works, Carbonaki. They write from computers what users do. Then they study it and then they copy it, reproduce it. If previously they just break site, right now they study how users are working, then they try to reproduce these users' operations, and you can see they achieve their results. Okay, thank you. Speaking about the Anunnaki topic, or Carbonaka, whatever you call them, there was an interesting situation, technical situation, about which common means of information security are not working very well. If you will study administrative panel of this Anunnaki, one of the main panels, they have simple matrices, 200 bots, 200 computers, all of them from serious organizations. 8 out of 10 have antiviral solutions installed. That's the answer. This is a criminal group that have stolen 7 billions of rubles. Not the most successful, because right now there's even more successful groups like Work or Corcom. It's even difficult to see who is more successful, but it's the case. Companies have entrusted to big vendors, to big companies, which undoubtedly are very good manufacturers of antiviral. But in this situation, it didn't help them to specific computers. They got infected, and people have brought a lot of additional software together with them to the means of communications. Within a month or two, they've been cascading this attack. They've been studying the work day of the system administrator by recording all his actions, and then knowing how the system works, when what can be spoofed. They've done illegal transfers. It cost, in each case, hundreds of millions of rubles. So the attacker is much closer to business than security guys, than information security, and they understand processes much better than information security guys. And speaking about the technical part of the attack, I would point out that previously there was a lot of different software inside of the company that worked. And from the point of view of attacks against the company, you just had to, like HTA that has been working, but right now in the requirements it's included that cross-browser, so it's not so easy to enter the company from outside. And from the anti-infrastructure attacks, you've mentioned firewalls, I would mention IPv6 introduction. How it works right now, very often interfaces, IPv4, IPv6 interfaces, and if we are binding all the interfaces, IPv4 and IPv6 are being binded, then we see misconfiguration in IPv6 networks when they block only for IPv4. Then to v6 we can also get in touch. And these are events of the recent days. And we see companies who introduce IPv6, and these are changes of recent days. And generally speaking, such peculiarities, we do see more and more of those in the market. And there's some replacement by new technologies which are still not completely understood, and nobody can explain how IPv6 works, how it's being produced, etc., and what is being binned. And that's why we see a lot of other bottlenecks. I don't know about new bottlenecks, but recent pen test, month ago, internal pen test, basically speaking, it has ended in 10 minutes after getting connected to the Ethernet, because a vulnerability of the year 2009 was discovered. It immediately gave domains and admins, and it happens every second time. Yes, that's clear. Another topic, social network. Basically speaking, right now it's a very good field for the attacker, due to a simple reason that there's a lot of systems out there. And if previously person does have corporate email, and it's the only thing that connects him to that attacker. But right now, people have too many channels of communications with the external world. Attention of a person is disturbed. And for example, I like Nagmail. I use Nagmail mail, and I receive a letter from Gmail from some unclear account. Every month I receive this letter, and if somebody has a Gmail account, you receive those letters. This letter says that statistics of use of your account are following. Well, it's wonderful, but when you follow the link, you're being sent to some Google something resource, awful thing, instead of immediately transferring you to statistics site. They ask for your password. So when I've seen that for the first time on my iPad, I say, oh my god, they're trying to socialize me and the computer. Well, I figured it out. No, they didn't try to spoof me. I don't receive letters like that. No. Oh, what? I have a question. Can you tell us, please? You do have great experience of pen testing. Did you have an experience of pen testing of foreign companies? And how's it different by mentality, by mindset of our domestic companies? Which things you immediately can differentiate them by from our companies? Well, they have clear procedures. That's what I can say. If they tell you, we have an interval during which you can do the pen testing, how much do you need? 3 hours. Okay. In 3 hours they come to you and they ask, have you finished? And then you have to clearly keep to these time frameworks. From this point of view, they don't give you such freedom like with Russian ones from external perimeter. Yeah, we can do it anywhere, however. No, they are very precise. They well understand that, and they say, which tests will you do? Specifically, be specific, the list of tests. Okay, we don't like this one. This test, please don't do this test. We don't want this test. Something like that, it's their mindset. And I would like to add, I agree that if they have such a precise frameworks, there are requirements to the reports. If in Russia, very often you write about formats that they have in the companies, very often they give you formats which you have to test. And sometimes there's a problem that they require the list of all the tests. And sometimes it's impossible to list all of them because it's a creative process. And if you'll try to formalize something, it can be listed, but some things cannot be listed. Another thing which happen on the on-site works, it's a very difficult moment if the company, well, they give you find the RC, you inform them on the second day, and then they can put a person who will look at your monitor, who will watch you, which is very strange. Yes, it happens in Russia as well. It happens in Russia, but in Russia, these are single companies that we can call by the name, each one. But in the West, it's a normal situation. And I'm speaking not only about Western companies, but also about UAE, Arabic countries, and other single countries. They are more paranoid from this point of view. In Russia, we're more loyal to things like that. Okay, thanks. And the final question, I think we come to the end of our session. From the point of view of trends, what do you expect in the next 5 years from the point of view of you as practitioners? For example, I have a feeling, and I do feel it because of 2 previous years, information security has a need to revolutionize the means of information security, because sometimes we cannot catch the intruder. IDSs and firewalls, they don't protect you from everything. So those people who work in information security, we don't evolve too much. So the need for classical IS means will get away. So in the next 5 years, what do you expect? And what would you like to see maybe there are some things that you don't expect. So what are your predictions for the next 5 years of information security? Well, I'm not going to be original by saying that I expect repetition of 1990s and 2000s, because in every new technology, especially if it has embedded like Internet of Things and other things, everything new which comes to the market, in the beginning they don't have information security on the proper level. But speaking about corporate networks like banks, telecoms, well, I think on a step-by-step basis, everything will become more and more mature. You can see it from statistics, and there are studies about the number, especially if you go into the application, the vulnerability statistics posted on backtrackers. You can see that web applications since 2000 till 2008, we see a higher number of exploits and vulnerability. But after 2008, their number has dropped because a certain breakthrough happened, and developers have understood about those vulnerabilities, and they started working the frameworks. And they don't use their own code, but tested and checked language. And it's going to be the trend that everybody will become more mature and will have less vulnerabilities. And speaking about banks and telecoms, 5 years is not sufficient amount, because they are trying not to change everything, and they work with same things for 10, 15 years, so they should apply changes after shorter periods of time. So I don't think something serious will happen in 5 years from now. Well, I think that we will see continuation of a trend that regional banks, small banks, they are being broken. They will be continued to broken. Let's a central bank to remove their licenses. The market will become bigger. The processes will become wider. So it's not going to be as simple as right now. So perhaps those of you who were not able to go into virtualization, you'll have to go to this section. And I think many of you will face surprises of this virtualization when security paradigm is changing. For example, as for us, the root router is the most critical one. Directory domain control is most vulnerable. But right now, suddenly everything is virtualized, and intruder can be even on a lower level. And I think it's a prospective direction from the point of view of pen tests, because it happens that I'm speaking about my own infrastructure that I have created. I do have a certain account profile with wider privileges than the main registrar or the main firewall, for example, which is below this account, and from this account I can get control over the whole network. But due to the fact that history is repeating itself, again, we're coming against IPv6. We will have a lot of new obstacles, unexpected obstacles that we have previously passed. Well, that's perhaps what I see. Questions? Hello everyone, my name is Mikhail, and I would like to ask you the following question. I'm from integrator company and I'm information security officer, but I see the situation that in our country we live in such realities that, like Vitaly Sergeyevich Luchikov was telling to us, and other integrators were speaking about small scale, big scale. The information security is very formalized. Why? Because developers, they just cannot, or maybe they don't want, I don't know what is the reason, but they develop security means which do not comply to the requirements of real threats. That's why I would like to ask you, how can we get closer in security software in our country to real threats? Not from the point of view of employees, but from the point of view of hackers from the point of view of, okay, I understand you, and maybe another one, the direction. Maybe you can give us a thesis for the state companies, and as a proposal from me, can we legalize the activities of those hackers, organizers, and maybe certain order of licensing should be invented? Thank you. Difficult question. About licensing of hackers. There's a company called Positive Technologies and Digital Security and Kaspersky Lab, Headline Security. Then Roman Inc. So top pen testing companies in Russia. Well, license for pen test we don't have. We don't have a concept of licensing pen testing companies. Well, what are you speaking? You're speaking about qualification that could be received. Well, somebody like PHDays, they started thinking about this problem, they raise a stand, and then they're being approached, and if you want to do certain types of activities, then you should confirm to your competencies. So if somebody will have this direction, and by the way, I've been speaking to those who did the infrastructure that is being broken by our guys within this forum. I was told that they have prepared more than 700 virtual machines. It's a full city that is being broken. Well, that would be wonderful if some specific people would receive this certificate, and then perhaps they would get employed with this certificate. But from the point of view of company, when we offer our services, every person has a certain profile that he is working in this bug bounty, he did pen tests in those industry, he understands those and those topics, he has those and those certifications. So in other words, we have a clean world. Well, to be a normal pen tester, you have to be a good pen tester. And some banks, in order to admit you to be a worthy company, they give you infrastructure, you break it, they evaluate how you do it. Well, the state can do the same thing. They can make a certain infrastructure, and the company which breaks it and finds vulnerabilities is considered to be a worthy one. So it's not so difficult to be done technically and organizationally, but it's a good way in which many organizations in the world are moving. Also would propose those decrees for state informational systems or APCS systems, which are critical from the point of view of our authorities. They should have a certain order of not just analysis of vulnerabilities like FStack with the license of ZKI, but honestly speaking, these companies, they cannot work with vulnerabilities. They just don't know how this should be done because they are not hackers. It's another side of the medal. Basically speaking, in many cases, and even their IT guys are not really good IT guys. That's why I would make such a proposal that these type of activities should be moved into another segment of activities, and this should be mandatory for analysis of vulnerabilities, not with the help of some economy options, but specific pen testing from specific organizations who also should go through licensing procedures. But the state is so big, and there are so many PCSs, process control systems, but pen testers, there are very few, and companies who do that. So, well, it's wonderful. And there wasn't too many licensed organizations by FStack. For example, when GEES was, we had 100 companies. Then we have to train the school of hackers so that we would produce pen testers. Why not? Well, it's a question not to us. We shouldn't be asked this question. Well, I just wanted to hear your opinion. Because if this would be done in our state, how would you react to that? And would you participate in this from the point of view of your community? Or this is not interesting to you at all? For money, do the analysis of APCS. We do the automatic process control system testing for money. But what the state should do in order to attract you to this work more often? Right now, it's kind of half voluntarily a desire of a client. They can call you, they may not call you, but how can we do it more organized? Because in Europe, as I know, their public portals, municipal portals, they have to do pen testing every year. It's a normal obligation. In our country, they're not obliged. That's it. Well, perhaps like PCI DSS should be done, but industrial one for public companies. Something like that. Those who have APCS, they should go through pen test every year or every 6 months. They should go through the audit of their process control systems, because pen test doesn't remove the audit. Audit is also a good thing depending from who does it and how they do it. And I would briefly tell you that there's another problem. You have done a pen test and you should pen test the PCS, but vendor should not remove those vulnerabilities, so it's going to be a vicious circle. And there's no patch and the software is not support, so it could be a vicious circle. Hello, my name is Vasily. Can you tell me, please, from the point of view of pen testing, whether it's possible, especially in the best practices, to provide certain minimal protection for infrastructure? Minimal, yes, but you have to understand that we see interesting substitution of concepts. In my practice, I've seen a company which told us that we are ISO 2701. What they've done? They took a certain section, and that particular section was certified. And after this, they said, well, we are compliant, everything's good with security. But during the pen test, of course, we didn't find vulnerability in that piece. We found vulnerability in another piece that was not certified. And even availability of this paper and that certified piece, they were vulnerable. We came to a certified part, but looking at PCI DSS, those who do it honestly, well, it improves the security. But in the course of the pen test, client can tell us, they say, please close your eyes for vulnerabilities in this part, because our system in 6 months will be different. But we have to work, they say. So from this point of view, we make clever things. We put it in a report, but as an application, and then as the next step, the client, whether he is ready to show it to auditor or not, it's the objective. So there should be proper requirements which improve this if we follow the requirements. Of course, there are basic recommendations which have to be followed. At least basic updates, infrastructure, basic tools. They can take some things, of course. Okay, next question. Hello. Center Analysis of Cyber Attacks, Kazakhstan. My name is Arman. I have a practical question as a continuation to the question of Mikhail. We have the following situation. In Kazakhstan, we have an acute question of vulnerabilities of electronic government in Kazakhstan. Articles were published. Are there any practical recommendations and advices on how to protect from bad quality pen tests? So formally, pen test was done, and this is something that we discussed. Formally, they are done in the course of several years. Big budgets are given from the budget, So formally all the requirements are followed, but at the same time, organizations like us, we do some free of charge pen tests, and we discover a lot of vulnerabilities, and then we show to the pen tester that pen test was a bad quality. So coming back to the licensing, controlling, you as practitioners and as market leaders, can you give us some specific recommendations how to avoid those problems? Well, it's an experience of our clients. There are mature clients who do pen tests, and they do it every year. What they do, 1 year they invite one company, second year they invite another company, etc. Therefore, they can evaluate how these companies are qualitative from the point of view of executing their work. In other teams, people can think differently. They can have different tools. I think Kiwi experience can be a good one. So it's the responsibility of the client itself. Yes, of course. Sometimes several companies are hired simultaneously in parallel. So taking your experience, Russian companies, do they have their own requirements to specialists, or if it's not been licensed, well, it's an absurd. Sometimes there are some requirements like that, but how can you protect yourself from that? Well, it's not one company who does the pen tests. You should have two, three, four, when you will have a minimal competition. So if you didn't have so many companies in the market, so there was no competition, and competition solves the problem. There will be efficiency, there will be results. I think it's a question of time. Yes, I do agree. I agree. You need to have a competition in the market, and to have a possibility to choose. Choice. Formally, there is a competition. We have a number of companies which do pen tests. I think that the problem is not in the technical part, but in the corruption part. If you say that big budget is given, but there is no result, usually in those cases, it's a question not about the qualification, not about initial. How do you measure the professionalism of the company? There should be public researchers participating in the articles. If these are technically proper, show your responsibility, not just by writing article that you have broke something, some school site, but serious approaches. And like speaking about reputation, I will agree, this is a long process that has to be built, and as soon as there will be companies with good reputation, and if there will be competition between these companies, then everything will work properly. So I think it's a responsibility of the client, and Positive has a lot of clients like that. It's a complex question, and there are not many examples in the world where this problem was completely solved. If you take Visa, they've done a lot of systems, and there was a lot of fake certifications. There's a paper, but really it doesn't work. So it's a complex question. So a question to you. You as a representative of public structure, I'm not, we're private sector. Private sector. Well, but you said that you see the situation that a pen test was done, and then suddenly vulnerabilities were found a little bit later. How could it be done so that those who done those pen tests, they should suffer from it, and this information should be published? Yes, it was published. Articles were published on Facebook and Hubra. So what happened afterwards? Now it's still in the process. I think it's a very difficult question. It's a market maturity question, I would say. It doesn't take 6 months or even a year. In Russia, there is no serious legislation from this point of view. What about the West? There is no pen testing licensing. In the West, it does exist. And approaches like, for example, PCI DSS. You go through each year's certification, and there's a lot of clever things when the company says that somebody goes through the pen test and then you will receive the certificate. So there's a lot of ways of getting around and shortcuts. Okay, thanks. Okay, friends, we came to an end of our morning session. Do you have anything else to say, to add? Then thank you very much to all of you. I think it was a useful discussion to all of you, to all involved in pen testing, young and older ones. So from my side, I'm really glad that people share their experience with high qualification. I think this is very useful, interesting. So I would like to say thanks to all of you. Thank you very much.